Hey class, this is Craig Gummelt, and this is my book digest presentation. The book that I will be covering, or the book that I read this semester, was DBU Worship, Straight Talk on Music and Church by Barry Leach. It is a book to help aid worship leaders in providing directions on worship programs and to help in philosophy and theology of worship. It focuses on a worship that is blended in nature. It covers traditional and non-traditional music, styles of music in a free-flowing praise format. It covers tough questions and controversial issues that are facing the church today, as well as offering practical application and analysis. Some major hypotheses, or the purpose of the book, are it provides a biblical and theological perspective. The author spends a great deal of going in depth covering Colossians 3:16 and Ephesians 5:18 through 21. It does a great job on going in depth of looking at both of those scriptures, and it was good to see this book rooted in scripture. And as a youth pastor, I know that I can definitely take the lessons that he provides in some of those chapters to teach my students about worship. It discusses contemporary trends and technology. He starts a conversation by trying to define worship and the styles presented today, particularly choruses, or what is known as contemporary, and hymns as traditional. His view is that church today should be a blended of hymns and choruses. Reminding you that this is a book that's 15 years old, and so the section that's on technology is a little outdated. I think that's the part of the book that needs the most updating. But he covers the use of computer software and projectors and mics instead of using overhead projectors. So it also teaches concepts and illustrates techniques. For example, the Wimber 5-phase model. It is a model that has 5 phases within worship to help make smooth transitions. It includes invitation, engagement, exaltation, adoration, and intimacy. I had heard worship sets being put together by fast, upbeat to maybe slow song, and then another upbeat song, or ending on a slow song. But I had never really thought of the style of songs in this depth and in this way. So it was definitely a fresh insight to me. This Wimber 5-phase model. It also helps the churches in worship transition. It provides practical service plans and developments to help churches slowly transition into a more blended worship service. It also helps build the pastor and musician relationship. It discusses practical everyday situations of working with volunteers and how to care emotionally and spiritually for those that are affected by change. For instance, an organist that is no longer needed or no longer playing at the church, and how change in worship also affects people, and just how to care for that. It also pushes worship pastors and pastors to invest in seminary training, just to study the topic of worship at a deeper academic level, and how when a pastor and a worship pastor both pursue that, it just leaves a room for them to communicate and really dialogue about worship. And so the author really pushes for pastors to receive seminary training, especially in worship. But some other notes, the author really approached this book in a define and research type of way. So he supplies everything with scripture to back up his statements. He researches other great writers on the subject of worship. So he really did his research, but you don't get to hear a whole lot of his personal viewpoints in this. It affected my thinking in that it just in the thoroughness and straightforward, and gave a pretty full perspective of worship. And then I guess one of the biggest insights that I got was just the way that he communicated worship, specifically on issues and just some of the topics that are going on today. And he wrote this 15 years ago, and he was pretty spot on a lot of the things that are still being talked about today, just the issues of music and culture and worship styles in the church today. And I would recommend this book mainly to pastors or worship pastors. As a youth pastor, I benefited from it, but I believe it is more geared towards pastors and also worship pastors that are serving in a local church. So pick up a copy and read it. It was a really great read, and thanks.